One of them was a Muslim, Mehmed Basic.
Assassin Mohammed Mehmed Basic. Weapon of choice, a grenade.
And they go past the first assassin, Mehmed Basic, the Muslim, and he freaks. His hands stay in his, he panics at the last moment. Nedjeljko Shabrinovic, he's got a bit more gumption to him than Mehmed Basic. He sees the car coming. It's open, it's going slowly.
It took one person with a revolver to do that.
Assassins. Dangerous operators that strike suddenly with brutal consequence. Targeting world leaders, politicians, figureheads. Bringing chaos and discord to our world. Wreaking havoc to upend ideologies. They can be amateur opportunists, professional killers, or misfits hell-bent on fame. Assassins are on a deadly quest to leave a bloody mark, change society, alter the very course of history. June 28, 1914, Sarajevo. A young, frustrated nationalist raised his pistol to Archduke Franz Ferdinand, pulled the trigger, and changed the course of human history.
So the point about Gavrilo Princip is that he is not the cause of the First World War, but he is the trigger.
April 6, 1994, Kigali, Rwanda. A plane was shot from the sky, killing President Juvenal Habyarimana. His death lit a powder keg, a genocide that took the lives of nearly 1 million people.
They are killed with machetes, with clubs, with rocks, with anything that could kill someone.
November 4th, 1995, Tel Aviv, Israel. Shot in the back by a lone gunman, enraged that Yitzhak Rabin spoke of peace with Palestine. The murder of one man led to the collapse of peace for many.
It took one person with a revolver to do that.
Actions have consequences. Consequences that are often unintended. Taking aim at political leaders, assassins are agents of discord, campaigning for chaos. A single death, a political assassination, often leads to many, many more. In 1914, Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina.
So the point about Gavrilo Princip is that he is not the cause of the First World War, but he's the trigger. He's the trigger who brings about the events that will roll out into the First World War.
Gavrilo Princip was born into a poor farming family in the village of Oblaj, July 1894, in what is now known as Bosnia-Herzegovina.
He was a country bumpkin. He's a rural boy, a lad from a farming background, a peasant background. They'd lived there in absolute peasant poverty because it was a feudal state, a feudal country, where once they'd been run by Ottoman overlords, they were more recently run by another type of overlord, another imperial overlord from Austria-Hungary.
The Habsburg dynasty had ruled their empire for over several hundred years. Their land and wealth gave them status, opulence, privilege.
Theirs was a world of high-end living, hunting parties, castles in the mountains in the winter, and summer trips on the Danube. They lived an extraordinarily opulent life.
And Archduke Franz Ferdinand, nephew of the emperor and heir apparent, was next in line to rule.
But the subjects of this empire, they were ground under the heel, in total poverty.
Political assassins aim for change, trigger events, bring empires to their knees.
How are you going to bring change about? How are you going to end this feudal control? How are you going to end servitude? Gavrilo Princip's primary motive was to change that, to get rid of the colonial power.
By his early teens, Princip had left rural life and moved to Sarajevo to further his education.
That's where his anger grew. The Austro-Hungarians weren't giving any freedom.
In 1912, after demonstrating against Austro-Hungarian authorities, Princip was expelled from school. He walked 280 kilometers to Belgrade, Serbia, crossing the border. He fell to his knees and kissed the earth.
There he had finished his education, and there he had met people who, again, were of his sort of thinking, of direct action, what do we do?
The frustration aimed at Austro-Hungarian rule found a voice with the nationalist group Young Bosnia.
Princip belonged to a young generation of increasingly angry dreamers, and the dream was we get rid of the imperial power.
Their desire was to shift power and merge southern Slavic states, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia.
So who were Princip's conspirators? And there were a bunch of other young Bosnia members, people who were in the same group as him, who'd had enough. Of that group of 6 of assassins that day, one of them was a Muslim, Mehmed Basic. Then there's Gavrilo Princip. There's a man called Svetko Popovic, and a man called Trifko Grabes, and a man called Nigolko Jabrinovic, and a man called Vaso Jubilovic.
In Belgrade, Princip and his co-conspirators received weapons and training by Kruna Ruka, or the Black Hand, a secret Serbian military organization, a training ground for assassins. When news broke that the Archduke would soon visit Sarajevo, they mobilized.
And so he left Belgrade, crossed the river again covertly, worms his way through the countryside that he knows so well because he's lived there for some years, and he ends up in a city he knows well.
Their pockets lined with weapons, they made their way through Sarajevo.
The sun was out that morning on Sunday the 28th.
Crowds lined the streets, watching the Archduke's vehicle pass by.
So it had been advertised for days in the newspaper. They knew where the vehicle was going to do. It was going to come in from a suburb. It was going to come along the boulevard that goes next door to the river, slowly, where the adoring crowd would be able to pay their respects to this imperial figure.
Co-conspirators spread out intermittently along the route.
1 out of 6 will get a chance. That's all it's going to take.
Assassin Mohammed Mehmed Basic. Weapon of choice, a grenade.
And they go past the first assassin, Mehmed Basic, the Muslim, and he freaks. His hands stay in his... He panics at the last moment.
The second attempt, assassin Nedeljko Čabrinović.
Nedeljko Čabrinović. He's got a bit more gumption to him than Mehmed Basic. He sees the car coming. It's open. It's going slowly.
His weapon of choice, a grenade.
And then he throws it, and he throws it at the car. The Archduke sees it. He's seen to pour with his hand. It bounces on the back. The fuse doesn't go off. It bounces onto the ground. The car creeps on, and it goes off, bam, under the next car.
The Archduke and the motorcade continued towards Sarajevo Town Hall.
And he carries on with his program. It's literally his program. He has a piece of paper to give a speech. They get the piece of paper, guess what? From the car behind, it's got blood on it.
The exploded grenade had injured others in the second vehicle.
And in the next few minutes, something dramatic happens. There's a change of plan.
The Archduke decided to visit the injured in hospital. the route had been altered, but the driver had not been informed.
What does an assassin need? Does he need training? Does he need the most sophisticated weapons? Does he need incredible fitness? Well, what he really needs is the devil's luck. And Princip had the devil's luck.
Princip found himself outside Moritz Schiller's Delicatessen on the corner of Franz Joseph Street as the Archduke's car pulled to a stop.
The people in the car shout at the driver, "Stop, fool! That's the old plan. Haven't you got the new plan? Stop!" And he stops. And where does he stop? Right in front of Gavrilo Princip, the assassin with the devil's luck.
Princip looked at the Archduke, stepped off the footpath, pulled a pistol from his pocket.
He gets one shot off and it hits right here, bam, in the neck.
Princip's bullet severed the Archduke's jugular vein. A second shot hit the Archduke's wife, Sophie, in the abdomen. In the seconds after the assassination, Princip attempted to take his own life, but he was overwhelmed by the crowd and pinned down.
So there stands Gavrilo Princip at the very start of the events that are of the First World War. He is that moment, that gun, that's the original sin. Everything that we can think of from the First World War, the mud, the blood, the trenches, the duplicity, the empires, everything flows from that.
From one death, many. The assassination triggered conflict between Austria-Hungary and Serbia. Germany sided with Austria-Hungary in blaming the Serbian government. Russia stood with Serbia. The already fragile relationship between Europe's great powers disintegrated. Princip could never guess the consequences this assassination would have. He wanted to unite Serbians, Bosnians, and Croatians, and dismantle Austro-Hungarian rule and achieve independence for Bosnia and Herzegovina. Instead, he triggered events that escalated into World War I and cost the world 20 million lives.
Princip died, broken and alone in a jail cell, aged 23. An assassin shot can change the world. By how much can rarely be predicted. Disruptors of peace take aim against advocates of social change, justice reform, and equal rights. They are agents of discord, campaigning for chaos. Loner fanatics, convinced of conspiracy, ideologically unhinged, and prepared to kill.